Most men fail before they even complete a week. Statistically, numerically, factually, most attempts at change don't make it past the 7th day. Do you know why? Because the first few days are brutal in a way that no one prepares you for. There's no romantic mask, no motivational illusion. It's here in these first few days that pornography cruelly reveals how much it had already trapped you, how much it had infiltrated the most basic structures of your motivation and identity. Many men enter this journey confident, full of superficial determination, sincerely believing that all it takes is to want it badly and that pure willpower will hold when the storm arrives. They make grandiose promises to themselves, declare total war, feel like invincible warriors on the first day. But the neurochemical reality arrives quickly like a runaway train. 5 days seem like an infinite eternity, when you are literally at war against your own impulses, when each hour demands a mental strength that you didn't know you would need to have, when every moment of silence becomes an opportunity for the mind to try to convince you that you are making a gigantic mistake. And maybe that's exactly where you are now. Day 5. The body heavy as if carrying lead on your shoulders, the mind restless like a caged animal, the temptation no longer whispering politely, but screaming and demanding attention every second that passes. It is here, at this exact point, that the cruelest statistic is revealed. Most men fall, not because they are fundamentally weak in truth, not because they are incapable or defective, but because they were not prepared for what this battle really demands, not just brute force, but intelligent strategy, not just momentary motivation, but structural discipline that works even when you don't feel like continuing at all. They went in thinking it would be like a quick diet, a few days of discomfort, and then everything would go back to normal, only better. They thought it was enough to promise firmly, and that the universe would conspire in their favor. And at the first real slip, at the first truly seductive trigger, on the first sleepless night when resistance was at zero, they ran back to the familiar cycle, carrying even more shame and the toxic certainty that they will never succeed. But you are here. You've reached day 5. That already says much more about your character than you might realize. It means you have resisted things that, at other times in your life, would have instantly knocked you down. It means you have started to write a different story, to create concrete evidence that real change is possible. It means you are officially among the minority that manages to transform intention into consistent action. And now what you need more than superficial motivation is deep clarity. Crystal clear clarity to understand exactly why so many seemingly determined men fail so early in this journey. And strategic clarity not to repeat the same fatal mistakes that turn warriors into failure statistics. Today, I am going to completely expose the most common and devastating traps that knock down almost everyone exactly at this critical phase of the journey. I will show you with scientific and psychological details why so many stop before even completing the first week, what are the patterns of sabotage that repeat themselves, and especially how you can use this intimate knowledge of the enemy as your most powerful weapon. Because when you really understand how the enemy operates, when you know their favorite tactics, their preferred attack times, their most effective seduction strategies, the fight completely changes its nature. You stop being constantly caught by surprise like an inexperienced soldier and start being always ready, always one step ahead, always with the right answer on the tip of your tongue. This is no longer a motivational video full of unreal promises. This is a psychological warfare manual based on the observation of thousands of men who failed exactly where you are now, and of the few who managed to cross this lethal phase and build lasting freedom. So if you don't want to be just another number in the cruel statistics of those who tried bravely and failed tragically, if you want to be among the few who transform this attempt into permanent victory, subscribe to this channel right now, as if your future freedom depended on this decision, because it really does. This journey is not about a day of inspiration. It's not about a week of intense motivation. It's about 90 days of systematic construction of a new identity. And with each video in this series, you will receive more tested ammunition, more proven strategy, more structural discipline that works in your worst moments. And leave in the comments what day you are on now. This is not just casual social interaction. It is a public commitment, that statistically multiplies your chance of success. Addiction hates witnesses, hates accountability, hates when you leave the shameful isolation and connect with a community of men facing the same war. This is day 5, the day when many discover if they really have what it takes to go beyond the speech. And if you deeply understand why so many fall exactly here, you will already have taken a gigantic step towards not being one of them, but one of the few who really succeed. The cruel statistic: the numbers don't lie. Most men don't even make it past the first week. Surveys in forums, reports in communities, even day-counting apps show the same pattern. Most relapses happen between day 1 and day 7. This means that if you've made it this far, you're already above average. Think about it. How many times have you tried to stop and didn't even make it past 2 or 3 days? How many times have you promised that this time it will work, and in the end, couldn't hold on until the end of the week? This is the most common pattern, not because all these men are weak or incapable, but because they didn't understand the critical phase. The brain is used to constant doses of artificial dopamine. When you cut off this supply, the body goes into shock. It's like a smoker without a cigarette, an alcoholic without a drink. Withdrawal comes early and comes strong. The desire increases, patience decreases, the mind creates excuses, and the result is relapse. This is the cruel statistic: most give up at the beginning. They don't see the point in enduring the pain. They don't believe it will get better. They don't have the patience to wait for the adjustment. And that's why they go back to square one. But if you are here on day 5, you have already broken this cycle several times before. You have already shown that you can resist more than the average. Now the key is not to be fooled. Being above average does not mean being saved. It just means you've entered a different phase of the battle. The enemy changes strategy, becomes more sneaky, more psychological. So don't fall into the trap of thinking you're safe too early. Use this statistic as a warning. Most fall here because they underestimate the fight. Don't do the same. The fact that you've made it this far is a victory, yes, but it's just the beginning. The myth of willpower. One of the biggest mistakes that knocks men down early on is believing that willpower is enough. How many times have you heard someone say, "Just have discipline, just want to stop"? It sounds nice, but in practice it doesn't work that way. Willpower is like a cell phone battery. You wake up with it charged, but as the day goes by it runs out. And when night comes, which is precisely the most critical moment, this battery is already in the red. That's why so many relapse in the early hours of the morning, not because they are monsters, but because they only counted on willpower, and willpower runs out. Discipline is not born out of nowhere. It needs structure. You don't build a fortress relying only on "maybe I can." You build by creating barriers, preparing the ground, arming yourself against the attack. This means a protected environment, a clear routine, simple strategies. Without this, willpower becomes a lit match in the wind. It goes out in the first gust. Many men fail early because they still believe in this myth. They think they will succeed just by holding on tight. But addiction is cunning. It will wait for the moment of weakness. It will launch a digital trigger. It will use boredom. It will use loneliness. It will use stress. And if all you have is willpower, you give in. The truth is that winning this phase doesn't depend on being a hero. It depends on being strategic. It's like going to war. No one goes to the battlefield with their chest open, relying only on courage. They go with armor. They go with a shield. They go with a sword. Willpower may be the heart of the fight, but without armor, the heart doesn't last. So remember this. Don't fall for the myth of willpower. Build discipline through structure. Protect your environment. Have a routine. Create barriers against triggers. This is what separates those who fall early from those who survive. The weight of digital triggers. If there is an enemy that knocks you down faster than your own willpower, that enemy is digital. Social networks, short videos, ads. Everything was made to capture your attention, and along with it, your dopamine. And this is where many men, without realizing it, are already being prepared for relapse. Think about it. You decide to stop with pornography, but you keep scrolling through the feed on Instagram or TikTok. What appears? Suggestions, bodies, insinuations, almost explicit content. The brain doesn't differentiate that much. Visual stimulus is still stimulus. Even if you don't click on anything heavy, these images already light up the circuits that were resting. And when night falls, when energy is low, the rest of the path is already paved. This is how digital triggers work. They don't knock you down right away, but they prepare the fall. It's like someone who fills a glass of water little by little until a final drop overflows. What knocks you down is not just the click on the adult site. It's the sequence of small concessions that came before. And the most treacherous thing, we live immersed in these triggers all the time. Just unlock your cell phone. Just open a browser. Temptation is one click away, sometimes half a click away. And if you don't create barriers, sooner or later you will fall. That's why I say, it's no use fighting only with willpower if the environment conspires against you. If temptation is a touch away, you've already lost half the battle. You need to create friction. Remove apps from the home screen, use serious blockers, leave your cell phone far away at night, because the war is not won only by resisting the blow, it is won by avoiding being exposed. Many men fail early, not because they wanted to fail, but because they put themselves in an open field without a shield. Don't be fooled. Digital triggers are not neutral. They are actively pulling you down. Recognizing this is vital to not being another one in the statistics. The internal enemy, the mind. If digital triggers are dangerous, the cruelest enemy is still inside your head. It's your own mind, because it not only feels the desire, it invents excuses. And these excuses many times even seem logical. You must have heard your mind say, just today, just once. Or, better to fall now than later, at least it unloads. Maybe you've thought, I deserve it after a hard day. Each of these phrases is a disguise. In practice, they all lead to the same point, opening the door to the cycle again. Self-deception is more destructive than desire itself, because you recognize the desire. You feel it in the body, in the anxiety, in the impulse. The excuse, on the other hand, the mind dresses in rationality. It even seems like a conscious choice, but it's just a trap. This is where many men fall early, not because they couldn't stand the desire, but because they believed the lie they told themselves. And the cruelest thing, every time you give in to this internal voice, you reinforce its power even more. The mind learns that all it takes is to invent a convincing excuse, and you obey. Epictetus said, "No one is free while they are a slave to their desires." But I would say that no one is free while they are a slave to their own excuses. The mind, when addicted, becomes a lawyer for the addiction. And only when you realize this, do you start to reverse the game. The secret is to unmask the lie the moment it arises. Don't discuss, don't argue. Just recognize, this is just my mind trying to trick me. When you name the excuse, you take away its power. Many men fail early because they still believe in their own narrative, and they only win when they learn to silence the mind at the right time. Loneliness as a trap. Another brutal reason why so many men fall before the first week is loneliness. Because in the silence of a closed room, the mind gains a voice. It is in this emptiness that addiction grows. Alone, you don't have to justify yourself. There is no witness, there is no charge, there is no one to see what you are doing. And addiction loves this scenario, it feeds on the secret. Each hidden relapse strengthens the chains because it makes it seem like no one needs to know. But deep down you know, and that awareness weighs on you. Many men fail early not because the desire was stronger, but because they were too isolated. They had no one to talk to. They had nowhere to declare the fight. They had no community. And then the weight of the journey seems unbearable. Think of any war. A soldier alone in the open field is easy prey. But in formation, with others alongside, he is protected, covered, encouraged. The same happens here. When you try to face it alone, the chance of falling is almost certain. That's why I insist so often, declare it. Write in the comments what day you are on, share your struggle. Look for a group, a friend, someone reliable. Not because they will fight for you, but because the simple fact of having a witness changes the game. Addiction hates when you take it out of the shadows. Loneliness is one of the biggest triggers, especially in the first few days. It's no coincidence that most relapses happen at night, when everyone is asleep and you are alone. It is in this silence that the mind invents excuses and the body gives in. So don't be fooled. Resisting in isolation is almost impossible. Those who win find support. Whether writing, whether speaking, whether participating in a community, the secret keeps you trapped. Sharing opens the door of the cell, the mistake of seeking perfection. Many men fall early because they enter this journey with the wrong mentality, that of seeking absolute perfection. They believe that if they have a relapse, everything will be lost, that if they fail once, it's not worth continuing. This thought is poisonous. The truth is that NoFap is not a straight line. It's a long war, full of battles, and in every war there are losses. What separates those who win from those who give up is not the absence of falls, but the ability to get up. But many don't understand this. They enter thinking they need to be flawless from the beginning. And when they stumble, they throw everything away. This search for perfection is a trap because it turns every small mistake into a catastrophe, and deep down, it serves as an excuse to give up. The man thinks, since I failed, it's over. I'm going back to the cycle. And addiction loves this reasoning, because all it takes is one failure for it to convince you that you are incapable. But the reality is different. Falling doesn't mean failing. It just means you're still learning. Every change process has stumbles. Every athlete makes mistakes, every warrior gets hurt, every student fails before getting it right. Perfection has never been a requirement for victory, but consistency, yes. When you understand this, it changes the way you face the journey. Instead of seeking to be perfect, you seek to be consistent. Instead of giving up after a mistake, you learn from it and come back more prepared. This is how warriors are forged, not in the absence of falls, but in the discipline of always getting up. Therefore, if you are on day 5 and have fallen sometime before, don't think that this disqualifies you. On the contrary, it shows that you keep trying, that you haven't given up, and that is strength. Perfection is unattainable, but consistency is within your reach every day. Unreal expectations. Another mistake that knocks you down quickly is the unreal expectation. Many enter NoFap believing that in a few days they will become supermen, infinite energy, sky-high confidence, absolute focus. And when they realize that it's not quite like that, frustration comes. You may have felt this. In the first few days, you thought you would wake up full of energy, that your mind would be clear as never before. But what came was tiredness, anxiety, irritation. Reality didn't match the expectation, and it is at this point that many give up. They think, if it's to feel worse, it doesn't make sense to continue. The problem is not in the process, but in the illusion created. The brain needs time to adjust. There is no real transformation in 48 hours. Just as a body doesn't change in 2 days of gym, your mind doesn't recover in a few days without pornography. It requires patience. This unreal expectation is born from exaggerated stories. Men who report miraculous gains in a week, as if every problem had suddenly disappeared. But each organism is unique. For some, the benefits appear early. For others, it takes weeks. The mistake is believing that you will be the immediate exception. And here is the point. When you enter with unreal expectations, disappointment becomes fuel to give up. You think, this doesn't work, I'm wasting time. But in fact, you are precisely going through the period in which you need to persist. The key is to adjust the vision. NoFap is not a sprint, it's a marathon. The results are not instantaneous, they are cumulative. If you accept this, each day of discomfort starts to be seen as an investment, not as a failure. Those who resist early are not those who expect miracles, but those who understand the process as a construction, and just that understanding already puts you above the majority. The cycle of guilt. If there's one trap that ensnares more men than any other, it's the cycle of guilt. It works like this. A guy gives in to impulse, feels pleasure for a few minutes, and then comes the shame. He thinks, not again, I'm trash, I'll never make it. This guilt becomes an unbearable weight, and instead of serving as fuel to change, it pushes him down. The man ashamed isolates himself. and in isolation the desire returns. The result? Another relapse. This cycle is devastating because it traps you in a spiral. Quick pleasure, guilt, isolation, relapse, more guilt. And so weeks and months pass without real progress. Many fail early precisely because they can't deal with the guilt. They believe that relapse means total failure, and overcome by this feeling, they end up repeating the behavior to alleviate the pain. It's cruel but real. Guilt becomes a trigger. What breaks this cycle is awareness. It's understanding that feeling guilty doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means you're aware that you did something you didn't want to. And this awareness, instead of being used against you, can be used in your favor. When you learn to transform guilt into learning, it stops being a prison and becomes a teacher. Ask yourself, what made me fall? Was it boredom? Was it loneliness? Was it a digital trigger? What was the exact moment when the decision was made? This analysis is not to martyr yourself, but to map the terrain. The man who manages to learn from the fall is no longer trapped in the cycle. Because the next time that trigger appears, he recognizes, I know where this leads, I won't repeat it. Guilt stops being a weight and becomes a guide. If you're on day 5 and have fallen before, don't torture yourself. Use the experience as ammunition. Write, reflect, share. What keeps you trapped is not the fall, but how you react to it. The cycle of guilt only exists if you allow it. Strategy 1. Preparation before the battle. No warrior enters the field without a sword, without armor, and without a plan. But many men face NoFap as if they can win by improvising, relying only on willpower, and that's precisely why they fail early. Preparation is what separates those who resist from those who fall. Imagine a battlefield. On one side, you, with your desires, your discipline, your goal. On the other, an invisible enemy who already knows your weaknesses, knows your schedules, understands your habits. If you enter unprepared, he will knock you down in minutes. But if you prepare, create traps for the enemy, and strengthen your defenses, your chances of victory increase. Preparation means eliminating triggers before they attack. There's no point in waiting for temptation to strike, to then think about how to react. If your cell phone is your biggest gateway, don't leave it next to the bed. If specific sites always bring you down, block them immediately. If being alone at certain times is dangerous, change your routine. The battle begins long before the urge appears. Another part of preparation is mental. You need to have clarity of the why. Many enter NoFap just out of curiosity, or because they heard that it brings benefits. But without a strong reason, sooner or later, the mind weakens. Write on a piece of paper why you are here. To recover energy, to rebuild confidence, to break free from a humiliating cycle. The clearer your purpose, the harder it will be to abandon it. And remember, preparation is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of intelligence. No sensible general takes his army to war without a map, without food, without a strategy. So, why should you face this fight without preparing the ground? If you're on day 5, there's still time to review your trenches. Ask yourself, where are there still gaps? What is still too easy to bring me down? Close those doors now. Because when temptation comes, and it will come, you will have already done the most important work, reducing the chances of falling even before the fight begins. Strategy 2. Micro-victories. One of the biggest mistakes of those who start NoFap is thinking only in the long term. The guy puts in his head that he needs to reach 90 days, 6 months, 1 year, and just looking at that number, he already feels crushed. It seems impossible, unattainable, and this feeling that the goal is too distant is what brings many down in the beginning. That's why you need to learn to value micro-victories. Instead of looking at the top of the mountain, look at the next step. 1 day without pornography may seem small, but for someone who was trapped in daily cycles, it's a giant victory. 2 days is already double what many achieve. 5 days as you are now already put you above average. Each micro-victory needs to be celebrated, not with exaggeration, but with awareness. When you recognize that you have advanced, however small the step, your mind understands that it is progressing, and this feeling is fuel to continue. It's like a soldier who marks each conquered territory. Even if it's a small piece, it's proof that the war is advancing. Micro-victories also help break the pressure. When you think never again, the mind gets scared. It seems too heavy. But when you think just today, the battle gets lighter. You just need to win today. Tomorrow will be another fight. Thus, you transform a scary war into small, possible battles. So make this a practice. Celebrate today. Write in a notebook, Day 5 conquered. Say to yourself, I won another one. Share in the comments, I'm on Day 5. This recognition is not vanity, it's positive reinforcement. It's like training the brain to see value in effort. If you continue to accumulate micro-victories, you will realize something incredible. When you look back, you will see that the impossible was built step by step. The secret is not to run to the future, but to walk firmly in the present. Strategy 3. Active involvement. Another difference between those who fail early and those who resist is the level of involvement. Those who only passively watch content about NoFap, without committing, without writing, without exposing themselves, are much more likely to fall. Those who actively get involved create stronger roots in the journey. Active involvement means transforming your struggle into something visible and concrete. Writing a diary, for example, is one of the most powerful tools. When you write down your days, your triggers, your victories, you create a record that the mind cannot erase. Each written page is proof that you are advancing, even if little by little. Another way is to share. Comment on the videos, participate in groups, talk about what you are experiencing. Yes, this requires courage, because it messes with shame. But that's exactly why it works. Shame is the addiction's favorite weapon. It grows in secret. When you expose it, the current weakens. There is also the psychological side. When you commit in front of others, your mind interprets this as a contract. The simple act of writing Day 5 in public already increases your chances of continuing, because no one likes to contradict themselves. It's as if you had witnesses to your effort. And don't think this is weakness. On the contrary, it's strategy. The great athletes, leaders, and warriors in history have always sought mentors, teams, and brothers in battle. Active involvement creates an invisible support network which becomes vital on the most difficult days. Therefore, if you're on Day 5, don't hide. Write about it. Comment down here. Send a message to someone you trust. The more you turn this fight into something concrete, the harder it will be to give up. Silence is the enemy's field. Exposure is your shield. Maybe you've already fallen in past attempts, maybe even yesterday. And now that you've reached Day 5, the fear of failing again is haunting your mind. You think, what if I fall tomorrow? What if all this is in vain? This is one of the biggest traps, believing that each fall is proof of inability. But let me tell you a simple and powerful truth. Failure is not falling. Failure is giving up on getting up. Every man who has managed to break free from this cycle has stumbled many times. None of them were perfect. The difference is not in the absence of falls, but in the ability to transform each fall into a lesson. If you fall early, you have two choices: sink into guilt or extract learning. One destroys, the other strengthens. Think of it this way: each relapse brings valuable information about yourself. What time did it happen? What was the trigger? Was it boredom, loneliness, stress, anxiety? Were you tired, alone in the room, scrolling through your cell phone aimlessly? Or was it a memory, a notification, an ad that caught you by surprise? If you observe carefully, you will notice patterns. And it is precisely by understanding these patterns that you create new weapons for the next battle. Most men ignore this. They fall and only punish themselves mentally. They get stuck in shame, repeating phrases like, "I'm weak, I'll never make it." This cycle of guilt is exactly what keeps the addiction alive. It's like falling into a hole, and instead of trying to get out, digging even deeper. But you can use the same situation in another way. Each fall is like a map. It shows where the traps are, the weak points, the gaps that need to be closed. If you treat a relapse as a lesson, you come out of it more prepared. The mistake becomes fuel to not repeat the same pattern. I'll give you an example. Let's say you always fall at night when you're alone in the room. If you record this, you already know that you need to change the nighttime environment. Maybe take the cell phone out of the room. Maybe set an alarm for bedtime. Maybe even go to bed earlier. A relapse gave you this information. Next time you use this information to win. Another example. You realize that you always fall when you are tired after a hard day. This perception shows that the problem is not just pornography, but how you deal with stress. The solution? Create healthy escape valves, physical exercise, music, writing, meditation. Once again, failure has turned into learning. And if you stop to think about it, it's like that in all areas of life. How many entrepreneurs have failed several times before building solid businesses? How many athletes lost championships before becoming champions? Failure was part of the forge. It's no different here. So, if you fall early, don't let your mind say that all is lost. It's not. Use the fall as a lesson. Ask yourself, what did I learn? What can I change today so I don't repeat it tomorrow? Each mistake has a hidden message. Whoever listens grows. Whoever ignores repeats. And never forget, real failure only happens when you give up. As long as you get up, as long as you go back to the fight, no matter how many times you fall, you are already stronger than before. Maybe you're watching this video right now in the middle of the night, in the dark, with the room silent and your mind spinning. I know what it's like. It's at this time that the impulses come stronger. You pick up your cell phone just to check one thing, and when you realize it, you're already one step away from opening the same tab that always brings you down. This is the most common trap. Loneliness plus boredom plus night. If this is your case, take a deep breath now. No need to run, no need to despair. Just stop for a moment and remember, this urge will pass. The impulse that seems uncontrollable lasts a few minutes, then loses strength. The problem is that if you give in, you start the cycle from scratch. But if you hold on, tomorrow you wake up with a sense of victory. You won't regret having resisted. Never. I want you to think about one thing. If you fall now, in 10 minutes you will feel shame, weight, regret. But if you resist, in 10 minutes you will be stronger. You will be writing a new story. It's not about superhuman strength. It's about holding on a few more minutes. It's about being stubborn in the right direction. Get up, drink a glass of water, change rooms, grab a book, write on a piece of paper, "Today I won," and save that paper. These small attitudes completely change the course of the night, because addiction hates when you change the script. It expects you to follow the usual routine, open the screen, seek stimulation, get lost in the cycle. But when you break this pattern, it's like disarming a bomb before it explodes. And I'll be even more direct. You don't need to be a hero now. You just need to survive tonight. That's all. Don't think about day 30 or day 90 or a year without pornography. Think about getting through this night clean. Life is one like this, one night at a time, one day at a time. So if that's your case, close this video in a little while, but don't close it without making a clear decision. What are you going to do now, at this exact moment, to avoid relapse? It could be lying down and sleeping, it could be leaving the room, it could be writing in a notebook, but choose. Don't leave the decision up in the air. Whoever doesn't decide, gives in. You are not alone in this silence. There are thousands of other guys right now going through the same battle. Some will fall, others will resist. The question is, which side will you be on early tomorrow? Save this phrase. The impulse is fleeting, but the victory remains. This is the bridge that takes you from repeated failure to the discipline that liberates. And the crossing begins now. Now we have reached the final point of this chapter, and I need to speak to you absolutely directly, without romanticization, without softening. Most men fail early because they make a fundamental error of perspective. They face NoFap as a desperate sprint, a 100-meter race where you give everything you have for a few minutes and then can rest forever. They want, and this is understandable, immediate results that justify the suffering. They want to wake up on the second day with supernatural energy. They want to feel unwavering confidence on the third day. They want to experience the famous superpowers on the fifth day. And when they don't see these magical transformations happening on the schedule they invented in their own heads, they completely lose heart. They think something is wrong, that they are especially broken, that the process doesn't work for them. But the brutal truth is that this mentality is exactly what guarantees failure, because this is not a short race where you explode all your energy and then cross the finish line. It's a long, complex war with multiple phases. It's a marathon where victory belongs not to the fastest, but to the most persistent, to the one who can keep pace even when every fiber of the body screams to stop. You need to understand with crystal clarity that each day of resistance is literally like placing a solid brick in a construction that will last the rest of your life. In the beginning, when you look at the work, it seems ridiculously little. You see only some low walls, basic foundations, and think, this will not lead to anything, I'm wasting time. But keep going. Keep putting brick by brick, choice by choice, day after day, even when it seems like it's not making any difference. When you look back after weeks, after months, you will be shocked to realize that you have erected a castle, a new identity, an inner strength that you didn't know existed, a freedom that seemed impossible at the beginning. But if you stop early, if you give up in the middle of the process because you are not seeing immediate cinematic results, all that will remain is an unfinished ruin. And worse, you will carry the evidence that you tried and failed, which will make the next attempt even more difficult. Real overcoming requires two qualities that our modern culture rarely teaches: genuine patience and unwavering persistence. It's not Instagram glamour. It's not constant motivation that feeds on likes and comments. It's pure, raw, sometimes boring discipline. It's waking up on the fifth day, like today, tired, irritated, full of desire to throw everything up in the air, and even so, even without any desire, saying firmly, "Not today." It's looking directly at temptation when it appears, and it will appear, and consciously choosing not to negotiate, not to bargain, not to invent special exceptions. It's transforming discomfort from enemy to ally, from punishment to training, that is forging something stronger inside you. And here is something that maybe you haven't fully realized yet. Overcoming pornography is not just about stopping an inconvenient habit that hinders your productivity. It's about fundamentally redefining who you are as a man. It's about building a completely new identity, of someone who is not constantly dragged by primitive instincts, but who is guided by conscious purpose and deliberately chosen values. Every time you resist an impulse, you are not just overcoming a momentary temptation. You are literally shaping character, forging mental strength, building psychological muscles that didn't exist before. You are becoming a stronger version of yourself than you were yesterday, than you were last week, than you were last year. You may think this is motivational exaggeration, but think with me practically. If you can't master this specific impulse, if you can't say no to pixels on a screen, what real chance will you have in the face of the genuinely great challenges of life? Relationships that require patience and sacrifice, a career that demands long-term discipline, projects that require persistence through obstacles, spirituality that asks for renunciation of the ego. All this requires exactly the same mental muscle that you are developing now. NoFap is like a gym for the soul, a training ground for the discipline that you will need to carry to all other areas of life. Here you learn that you can endure discomfort without collapsing, that you can choose the difficult when it would be easier to choose the pleasurable, that you can build something valuable even when you don't feel like it. So today, on this fifth day, that already puts you among the minority that manages to go beyond the discourse, I make you an invitation that can change the course of your entire life. Consciously choose to be part of the minority that really transforms intention into lasting reality. Most fail early because they seek immediate gratification. Most give up before seeing the first real signs of transformation. Most measure success only in momentary sensations instead of deep structural changes. But you don't have to be part of that statistical majority. You can be the man who insists when everyone around gives up, who gets up even after stumbling, even after temporary relapses, who doesn't measure progress only in perfect and uninterrupted victories, but in the quality of the battles he chooses to fight daily. Repeat to yourself now, out loud if possible, "I'm not just trying to stop a habit, I'm becoming a stronger person." Let that phrase echo, because that is the true essence of overcoming. It's not about subtraction, it's about addition. It's not about taking something out of life, it's about adding strength, character, freedom. And now I need you to really commit, not just in abstract thought, not just in vague intention, but in concrete and public action. Subscribe to this channel to continue receiving these tested tools, because each new video will be one more strategic reinforcement in your battle, one more weapon in your arsenal against mediocrity. And leave here in the comments a word that will be much more than digital text: discipline. Write this not as a loose word without meaning, but as a public declaration of war against everything that tries to keep you small, as a flag planted on the digital battlefield. Addiction hates when you make a commitment in public, when you come out of the shadows of shame and connect with a brotherhood of men fighting the same war. This is not the end of your fight. It would be naive to think so. It's just the beginning of a journey that will take you far beyond what you imagine is possible today. The 5th day may seem small when you look at the 85 days that are still missing, but it already shows something extraordinary. You are statistically stronger, more disciplined, more persistent than most men of your generation. Most don't get this far. Most fall before even completing a week. Most never experience the feeling of looking back and seeing that they built something solid with their own hands. But you are here, still breathing, still choosing to fight, still believing that you deserve something better than digital slavery. That's already overcoming in action. Now it's up to you. Keep marching when your feet hurt. Keep raising bricks when your hands bleed. Keep winning daily battles when no one is applauding. Because when day 30 comes, day 90, day 365, when you are living a life that today seems fanciful, you will look back and understand that it all started here, in this seemingly small decision not to give up early, not to be another statistic of failure. The call has been made, the road is mapped, the choice is yours. But remember a truth that crosses centuries: whoever insists with purpose, whoever persists through pain, whoever builds when others destroy, that one always wins in the end. And you are not alone in this war. You are now part of an invisible brotherhood of men who have understood that true freedom is not given. It is conquered brick by brick, day after day.